But super intelligence is the kind of the scary part of AI, where it supersedes humanity. When it gets fully developed to super intelligence, AI starts talking to AI and building
I
AI.
can see that happening both in speed and depth.
You said it jokingly earlier, like this is the Antichrist. Like we're introducing, we're getting into some weird spaces. It was about 3 months ago. I don't know where it's at now. But the number one Christian contemporary, the top song was generated by AI, an AI artist.
Wow.
I do want to get back to your statement about the seeker-sensitive movement. Did you say dead? Is that what you said?
Well, if it's not dead, we should shoot it.
Hey, before we jump into the podcast, we want to thank all our donors and supporters who make the Today Count show possible. It's through your generosity that we're able to shape leaders through this content and this podcast. And be sure to like, subscribe, and follow wherever you find yourself coming across this content. All right, let's get to the podcast. Today on the Today Count show, we're talking about something we've created that is smarter than us, hoping it'll save us. But what if it decides it doesn't need us? We're talking about artificial intelligence, the good, the bad, and the ugly. My name is Winston Harris, and I'm a co-host today alongside the man, the myth, the legend, Jim Piper. Jim, how are we doing today?
We are doing exceptionally well.
Exceptionally well.
Yeah.
Okay, I like the exceptionally.
Yeah.
On a freeze day here in
It is cold.
South Texas.
It is cold. The longer I've lived here too, I've noticed my blood is thinned out. We'd be laughing about this in Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah. It's literally a no snow day today, and it's pretty comical if you live here.
I think we called it at our house. It's get out of school cold day. It's a cold day.
Get out of jail free card is basically what it looks like. But so we're jumping into the interesting topic of artificial intelligence, AI, and maybe trying to take a little bit of a different angle at it, specifically looking at it through the lens of media and faith. Is it a tool for truth, or is it a threat to trust? And you're going to kind of, share your thoughts, Jim. I'm going to share mine from our fairly different positions, and, kind of even getting into, can we use AI in a faith space when we're creating content, messaging, sermons, devotionals? How is it impacting media and news, and how we're seeing the world even today? We got things like what's happening in Minnesota happening right now. How is AI impacting that, or how is journalism truthfully telling what is happening accurately? And my immediate position for artificial intelligence is that it should be seen mostly positive. I think it should be received as something to be excited about, something to leverage, a tool that can, obviously increase productivity, at large, be highly beneficial in so many industries and so many spaces, with the caveat, of course, if used appropriately. And I see you already smirking because that asterisk seems to be a big one. And so, maybe just jumping into this first space where we're talking about, journalism and how information is getting presented to us, whether it's on social media, whether it's the news. But what do we think about AI's impact on media?
Well, the first thing that I can't seem to skip over before jumping in the media piece is, how much have you used AI?
That's a great question. I think I was thinking about that on the way here, and I would probably say maybe 60-40 AI, and probably increasing because AI obviously has different ways to use it.
Yeah.
For most general consumers right now, it's probably Chat GPT or Claude or something to that effect. But even noticing some of the built-in stuff that you're not necessarily even choosing consciously, like there's different things that whether it's banking or phone calls, like a lot of things are just being more automated. So there's even probably more than we realize we're doing that is automatically already integrated, that AI is already integrated. But yeah, I would say, majority, I'm using it more than not.
Well, the reason why I ask, it's more out of curiosity than it is, attacking you. However, when I think about, there's things I don't understand yet, right? So, for me, I think my contribution to this episode is going to be at somewhere between 25,000 and 30,000 feet and on the ground. Somewhere, and
high and low.
So all that stuff in between, I'll admit I need to learn. Like, for example, what is the relationship between an algorithm and artificial intelligence? I'm going to assume with 30,000 feet thinking that algorithm is part of some sort of application of artificial intelligence. What's interesting for me, when we get back to your question of media, I can't help but think about my temperament. And, one of the definitions, one of the phrases to describe my God-given temperament is the technology temperament, which is interesting for a baby boomer, because I guess we all humans screw up with technology, whether we discovered the wheel or fire or whatever it was, but not in the rapid advancement, that my kids and my grandkids, have been. But so I do appreciate efficiencies. I do appreciate speed. But I think that plays into media, and by media, I assume you're talking about all media.
Oh yeah.
Social media, legacy media, even the stuff that we put out. So this is what I've noticed about speed. The faster thing can be produced, I think it is human nature to do less and less fact checking, less and less. If you ask ChatGPT to write you a paragraph for an email, because it's going to save you time, and it's a fairly simple thing, like maybe an invitation to your house for a party. So it's pretty benign. There's not a lot at risk there. And you read it and you go, good enough. And you send it. What you're teaching yourself is, oh, it does good enough. And the next thing you know, you're saying, hey, will you write this paper? Here are my 5 main points that I want to make. At least that's how I've used it, to see how it works. But it seems like the more I give it, the less it says. So I wonder about, and not to mention, how AI and video, come together. And some of the stuff that AI puts out, you can look at it and say, well, that must be AI, because I'm not sure I'm believing what I'm seeing. But then again, there's things that are pretty benign on the surface that you find out was AI generated. And I think about, that scares me.
Yeah,
a little bit. So from 2 angles, what I see, what I hear, is it real or is it AI? But also, even if it wasn't meant to deceive, if I get in the habit of saying what I want to say, am I also going to get in the habit of, I'm sure it's fine, and send it out, and then find out later that it did not communicate in any way, shape, or form really my voice or who I am.
Yeah, and you make an interesting point about fact checking, which I think that phrase, that idea, especially in the past few years when it comes to even political media, has been a point of contention. What we're hearing, is what we're seeing true? The term fake news, right? Yeah. Like a lot of these realities are out there, and it almost seems like in 2026, with so much access to information, we're constantly trying to sift through what is real, what is true, and what isn't. And there's an argument to make that AI has the ability to do more fact checking than humans fact checking humans. and leveraging, the ability of artificial intelligence to, filter through, take information from, historical events and line it up to, present day communication and all that kind of stuff. But, the caveat, once again, that I kind of put on that front end in the beginning is always going to be humanity, right? To your point, in the example of you inputting certain things and getting something out of it, AI is a tool that is going to be leveraged at the level that humanity is able to influence it. And, this is a deeper argument that we're not going to get into because it's definitely above my pay grade. But, super intelligence is the kind of the scary part of AI, where it supersedes humanity, right? It in some levels, it's said that AI, when it gets fully developed to super intelligence, starts informing AI. AI starts talking to AI and building AI.
I can see that happening both in speed and depth, right? Because if it has the ability, if it takes me 5 years to learn something about something, and AI can do it in 5 minutes, there's both your speed and your depth.
Yeah, and that's where people kind of, if you're anti-AI, people get really dismissive because you jump all the way to that extreme and that spectrum of like, oh, okay, this is where, Will Smith and the movie Robot, the world gets taken over and AI is evil. But I think to kind of, push back on that fact checking thing, at the same level, maybe we don't feel comfortable fact checking AI. We can also maybe not be comfortable with humans fact checking each other and leveraging AI to do fact checking. But even then, if we take a little bit deeper, and we'll kind of stay in maybe the political media space, where we get so much communication from either one side or another side, a lot of it is emotional. It seems to be framed to tug at heartstrings, to make us angry, to divide us. And there is a thought out there that AI can supply more data-driven communication, which can give us more objective views and more objective information that helps us make more rational decisions, less emotional decisions, less emotional bias in communication. And so one could think, man, if we leverage AI correctly, we can take facts at hand or generate more facts or put together more communication that is less emotionally driven, so that we can sift through all the, silliness at times and get to the core of certain issues and understand, okay, like, how can I be best informed by what's actually happening versus what I'm being told is happening through manipulative ways of communication?
Yeah, not to oversimplify it, but I see it almost as like more of the same. We talk about these mobile phones, what's good about them, what's bad about them, and I think that there's plenty that fall on both sides. So when as we dive into this topic, I can't help but think theologically, not because I'm a better person than anybody, just because I'm kind of trained that way and looking at. So the good side of AI, from a very high level, as I said, I would speak from before, is that to me, it's just more evidence of us discovering things that has already existed, and it's a constant revelation of how wonderful and powerful God must be, because we're doing handstands thinking this is awesome, and this is not even a drop in the bucket, for God's intelligence, speed, and so it's exciting in that way, because you every time we and I know I'm dating myself, but the first time I saw a cordless phone, I mean, I pondered it for weeks. I thought, I don't understand how that works, even though, we had walkie talkies that I, for some reason, just accepted because I grew up with it. But then you got a cordless phone. That was a whole next level, but that somehow messed me up. When these phones came along, I went, what in the world? And then of course what comes with them now is, and has been even more so through social media algorithms, and now we have this thing called AI. But on the other side of the theological spectrum is what humans tend to do with power, what humans tend to do with stuff. And so I'm not saying that we go into the bomb shelter and we hide, but I just know that I know because of what my human experience tells me about myself and other human beings, what the Bible tells me about self, there's going to be a lot of bad stuff that's going to happen. It's already happening. And so I didn't really think about what you said before about, I don't think I like the idea maybe of humans fact checking humans, with AI. But that leads me to another point, is that I think that's part of the problem. It's kind of like in football, we call piling on. It's like if we can't use our own voice to argue something, then we got to use AI to somehow bolster. And now we're just in an AI war where I'm beginning to wonder, am I even talking to that person anymore? Or are they loading their question, their point on AI and throwing it back? And then I'm throwing that into my AI box and say, how are you going to handle that? And at some point, I don't even know what's being said. I just got two robots going at it.
Yeah. AI box is hilarious. I love that. But
what are you going to do with that,
Winston? I definitely understand what you're saying. And I think this is in that space where I love the potential of AI to be an amplifier of humanity. And I think that's what it has potential to do at a level that nothing else has ever been able to do. So to your point, when we get lazy with AI, then it actually stifles creativity. It to your point, even back to the, creating an email draft for a party at your house, you're dumbing down critical thinking.
Yep.
But that's definitely not the position I'm coming from. And I think you can make that argument with anything, how often do you, go on, cruise control on your car versus always driving it, or the fact that you have an automatic versus a manual, right? Like, at what level are we?
Right, it's more of the same.
At what level are we trying to do less and not grow, or at what level are we trying to leverage the appliances, the equipment that we have to be amplifiers of our life, so that we can create more space and more room to do the things that matter, right? I think we even had a conversation a few weeks back about, where is my time best used, and do I need to be the one that mows my lawn, or do I need to hire somebody to mow my lawn, because that 2 hours could be placed somewhere else in my life at a higher, clip, more effective, my time, whether it's spent with my family or working on a business. And I think that same angle applies to AI. We have to be able to use it as a tool to give us more freedom to impact the places and spaces that we find ourselves in.
Maybe.
And but ultimately, yeah.
I certainly think that's true, can be true in some places. Have you heard of this term, soulless sludge?
I've heard of those two words separate from each other, not together.
Well, let me introduce them.
Okay.
Soulless sludge. So I was starting to get excited about ChatGPT and things. I've written 3 books. I'm working on my 4th book, but I know that I'm not a writer. I know that I think the best, if I got an A in English in school, is because I worked really hard. For whatever reason, I never thought I would write a book. As far as I was concerned, my goal in life was never write a sentence. But I've come to find out that actually I do like to write, but I have a mountain to climb, in this life to become a better writer. So it was beyond tempting to engage ChatGPT as a what do we call them? A thought a partner, a thought partner, where I'm really struggling with a sentence structure. And so I take this ugly sentence and I put it into ChatGPT and I say, make this better. And I delightfully got some, I go, I don't know why I didn't see that. But then that tempts you to say, write this paragraph. And then that tempts you to because it will constantly prompt you. What, do you want me to just go ahead and finish up the, because absolutely you suck at it. So, And like I said earlier, but one of the things I noticed is that the more I let it write for me, the more it became very wordy. The grammar was, It's kind of like corporate America. Corporate America uses AI now to write a lot of their job descriptions. And I don't know if you've ever gotten your hands on them, but after you read them, you do not know what that job is about.
It said a bunch of nothing.
It is, yeah, it is a word salad. And we know where we got that phrase from, at least recently in modern history. And I'm going to tell you a story. So I have a friend who has been in prison for over 20 years. And he wants to write a book about his experience, the whole experience, the stuff that preceded that, in that, and then what he plans to do afterwards. And I'm talking on the phone with him while I'm driving down the road. And I just asked him a question because he said he was having a hard time organizing his thoughts. And I said, hey, I get that. I mean, putting together the outline to me is as hard of work as, writing itself. And I said, have you ever tried using ChatGPT for putting together your outline? And he answered me. He's a very pensive individual, so he doesn't usually respond real quickly. He usually, you're usually waiting 3 seconds, 5 seconds, kind of a thing. And he talks slower because he's very philosophical. But in this case, there was no time. I didn't even, the ink didn't even dry on my sentence yet, where he said, I will not use AI. And he used a theological terms. He says, because I want to be guided by the Holy Spirit. And so I'm not going to go as far as making that statement, but what I will say is, even though I have told ChatGPT, you and I have worked a lot together, ChatGPT, you should know my voice by now. So I'm going to ask you to write this, whatever this is, in my voice. And what I get back was, soulless sludge. It just didn't make any sense. So, maybe it'll get better. Maybe it will get better. Right now, it's more of less.
Yeah.
It's kind of how I see it, at least in my experience on that part. And I know we're going to talk about, the media also in the phase of journalism, but I think what I like about reading people's books is they have a tone, they have a way, and whether it's my way or your way, I feel like I'm having a conversation with somebody. I don't know if this is true, but since ChatGPT, books that have been published have gone up exponentially, all traced back to ChatGPT. And a lot of the reviews are coming out with that same kind of thing. I'm not sure what was said. I'm not sure what is being said, almost to where somebody's willing to put their name in a book that they honestly didn't write. Maybe they provided the outline and gave a few points of but they didn't get to argue it.
Yeah.
Right. And to me, that's as much knowing somebody and hearing their arguments. I just don't know how it can replace somebody else's way of speaking. I think that misses something important.
Well, I think what you just said is therein lies the key. If your intent is to use AI to replace your voice, you're always going to be sadly mistaken.
Yeah.
Versus leveraging it to amplify once again. And I think where
give me an example of that.
Asking, artificial intelligence, even in its, simplest consumer-based form, the way most of us will probably use AI for the moment, ChatGPT, and I'll just introduce Claude, which, I've learned a little bit in my research.
It's supposed to be a little more creative, right?
It's supposed to be specifically for writing.
Oh.
Long form may be better than ChatGPT, and I couldn't give you the super, nuanced answer why, but it's recommended versus ChatGPT. But either way, and I think you kind of touched on it, but instead of, asking it to write you a paragraph, input equals output in the sense of, okay, what am I trying to achieve by engaging this, ChatGPT or Claude? Am I trying to get it to construct this idea and unpack this idea for me? Or am I trying to use it as a thought-provoking tool versus me going to, a autobiography? If I'm, writing, let's just say I'm writing something about sports journalism and I, I'm looking for some kind of angle and I'm using a book that's already written by somebody else. the temptation is to take what they've already written and kind of regurgitate it.
Mm-hmm.
Or am I using that as a tool to create some new thoughts that come from me, essentially? The same idea. Am I using AI? Am I using ChatGPT, Claude to help me pull out what's already inside of me? Versus am I depending on it to do something for me instead of me doing the work to do it myself? And I think, once again,
I think that's legitimate. I think it's harder, though, than one might think.
Yeah, I mean, and I would argue that there is a niche industry that is trying to leverage the idea of how to use AI appropriately through prompts. And I think that that's part of what we're talking about here, is that in this new world of using this technology, there's a way to use it, right? You know, you need to use a hammer a certain type of way. A hammer doesn't work any way you want it to work. You have to use certain tools the right way to get it to do its most effective job. And I don't know that we all understand how to use it best, or the best prompts, or the right applications. And it's because it's so unregulated per se, you know, it's almost like it would maybe do us some justice to put some licensing around it. You know, I almost think about this with social media and even podcasts. Nowadays, everybody has a podcast. Nowadays, everybody can build their own platform.
Right.
But should we? Probably not, because there should be some level of regulation around communication. You know, and I know we talk about free speech and all of that, but like, there's just some stuff that out there that's just not helpful, right? And just because you can get on social media, just because you can create an Instagram account, do you know how to use it appropriately, right? Misuse creates brokenness and pain, and you know, misinformation and deceit and lies, and people, back to theology, you know, people can build a theology on life based on misinformation, based on somebody misusing the tools that could be, in the same token, used to amplify truth. Right. And I think even when we're getting into, whether it's, you know, journalism, whether we get into, you know, the faith space, to not oversimplify it, AI can be used to amplify truth if we choose to use it that way. Great leaders don't ignore their past. They learn from it. Every decision you've made, every mistake, every win, every failure, it's all shaping the leader you're becoming. In Story, the art of learning from your past, you'll discover how to turn experience into wisdom, setbacks into strategy, and pain into purpose. This isn't just a book about reflection, it's a playbook for growth. If you want to lead with clarity, humility, and confidence, your story matters. Learn from it. Grab your copy of Story, the art of learning from your past, where books are sold.
Yeah, not disagreeing with that, but pointing out, depending upon how much experience somebody has put into it, you know, obviously I generate a lot of content, and the frustration about that is I can't give what I don't have. And so I still find that to create content, I have to spend more time doing soul work, meaning bringing in information, whether it be through reading, research, listening, you know, those kinds of things. But if one is not careful, they're going to substitute that really good soul work for these shortcuts. Two things I've noticed about this shortcut. One is that I can say to, you know, whatever, give me a 3-point outline that supports my conviction of this. And so I give them my conviction, and I think that's a pretty good thing to ask it. You know?
Prompt, yeah.
Yeah, and then I get these 3 points, but I don't like those 3 points. And that's my point. Sometimes it's not me. It's not, okay, I've also done this. You know, so I think that can be helpful if you can learn how to argue with ChatGPT. Again, we're picking on ChatGPT because that's the main tool right now.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that ChatGPT is too nice.
What do you mean?
What I mean is, I would say, I think what you wrote here is really stupid. It seems like
you'll put that in the prompt.
Literally. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Oh, you have done that?
No.
Oh, okay. So let me say I've got a lot of experience with this. So I'll say it just seems weak, and you seem to be playing to the crowd. And every time ChatGPT apologizes, says, I am right, I have so much discernment, it literally lifts you up and then gives another shot at it, right? And I'm going, yeah, this is not what I'm looking for. All right. So on the other side of the coin, I said, all right, here is what I believe. Here's why I believe it. Now you give me an argument for the other side. And I've been surprised. The arguments are pretty good. And some of the things I hadn't thought about, which then makes my writing better. Because then I go, some of the arguments might be this, this, and this. So, I'm not throwing mud at everything here. I think I too am trying to do it. But what I'm really concerned about, really concerned about, is what I said earlier. And I know you're going to get to this. Well, I can't wait to get to sermons. I'll just shut up, wait for you.
I mean, we can just get into it. Let's just get into it.
I just don't know. All right. Now this is just me. I mean, it's just me. It is my testimony. It's my testimony. Rarely have I been able to teach. Let me back up. There's the difference between putting together a deck, a workshop deck that you present over and over again. But even in doing that, hopefully you make it better and better every time. For example, that's what I'm doing in 2026. I have put together my framework of leadership in a 1.5-day workshop, and I will give it over and over again. But I doubt it that it will live in 2026 without a variety of improvements. A sermon is something different to me. A sermon is something that still needs to be incarnate, like the workshop, but and maybe it's because of our society and the way it's delivered. We live in a society where we do church weekly, right? And we hear a presented, message. So I find that very taxing. I did that for decades. For me personally, I find that very taxing. As a Christian, I want to believe that I have been guided and prepared by the Holy Spirit, and that it is fresh and new and alive in me. I've never been able to pull a message out of the archives, blow off the dust, and preach it. Because I don't know if I want to say I've outgrown it. I don't know that that's true, but it hasn't come through me afresh and new again. And Christians say that the Bible is God's word, and it's living and it's active. And so it is a lot of work to do it week after week after week, but I just couldn't imagine. I could imagine asking ChatGPT, how do I transition from this point to this point? I've tried that, but even that has left me wanting, in it. There's something about the struggle of the sermon. Even if you give the sermon, you go, that was a horrible sermon, but you struggled with it. So that one, because when I listen to a man or woman give a message, I'm listening for heart as much as I am content. So I don't know what to do with that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a hot topic specifically in the church space. Specifically, if you're on a pastoral staff, if you're a communicator, and there's those who once again see it as a tool, and those who see it almost, you said it jokingly earlier, like this is the Antichrist. Like we're introducing, we're getting into some weird spaces. I think, I don't know if this is true. It was about 3 months ago. I don't know where it's at now, but the number one Christian contemporary song on iTunes, I believe, or Apple Music, whatever it's called now. I'm a Spotify guy, by the way, so not sure what to do with Apple Music. But the top song was generated by AI, an AI artist.
Wow.
A worship song, a song that is supposed to be
I did
leading
not hear
people
that.
to worship God, was totally AI. Now, there's a human behind it, a man behind it that is prompting AI to write the song, but the song itself, the voice, all of it was AI.
You know, here's my stretch. This is my stretch to try to be agreeable. Jesus said, if you don't, the rocks will cry out. If you don't recognize me, if you don't worship me, if you don't pray, the rocks will cry out. I mean, all of creation, whatever that is, I don't even think we know everything that creation is. Now we are getting out there. You know, that would be my stretch going, okay, well, maybe it's not beyond the realm of possibility, because you can reduce, you know, we haven't, if you become reductionist and you go backward, you can almost create a reason for anything. That was a little tough for me to swallow, but believe it or not, I know that speaking for my generation, we have probably slammed that to hell. But I'm usually a little more forward thinking than a lot of my generation. Although I don't always agree with myself either. I can come back tomorrow and say I disagree with myself, you know, in this or that. Yeah, that's bizarre.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear your take on this. I'm going to say I don't know that I fully agree with a whole song that is totally generated by AI, even though a human is prompting it, because I think there's some level, once again, of nuance when we're literally talking about spirituality, and, you know, going as far as to say, you know, what spirit is on that song.
Oh,
right. Like, what can't we see that is influencing what we can see? Or
even just to cut to the chase, what is counterfeited?
But then on the flip side, you know, we get to, and, you know, push back if you think this is a stretch, but, you know, Paul writes, there's guys out here that are preaching for their own gain, but they're still preaching Jesus. As long as Jesus is being preached, you know, what's the issue? You know, I'm paraphrasing that. But his motives, Paul's motives, are different than these other preachers' motives, but Jesus is being preached. And so he's essentially saying, let's not, you know, stir up conflict.
Isn't there a conversation like that in the New Testament that aligns very similar to that, where you know, they were looking at the fruit and the motivation behind the message? Maybe not exactly. You know, I don't know. Let me give you a little different take, maybe. So in the 1980s, when I was, you know, digging deeper in my theology and trying to grow as a minister, I found a lot of help through two church leaders at the time, Bill Hybels out of Willow Creek in Chicago, mostly from the leadership side, and then Rick Warren from the leadership side, but probably more from the speaker side. Bill Hybels had a style that I don't think you could mimic. He just had his own unique style. Rick Warren was very good at bringing the Bible practically, you know, to people. So good that he started an organization called, I forget the name of it. But anyway, actually, I was actually confusing John Maxwell for a second, but Rick Warren. So you could sign up to get Rick's sermons as a pastor. You could sign up to get his sermons. So, you know, he was a form of AI in that time, because the guy could pump out sermons like no other. He's a resource. Yeah, he was a resource. And I signed up for it because I didn't know how. And when I would read through his sermons, they became organic for me. They convicted me, and I might change a word here or there. But whenever I would put my outline together, and then I would put at the bottom of the outline, this is during the seeker movement, which right now I think is dead, but and I wouldn't recommend it moving forward. But in those days, I think the Lord used it, you know, to help a lot of people.
I'm going to come back to something there, but you can go.
Okay. But anyway, so, you know, I don't want to sound like this purist or this old fashioned guy, because I'm excited about the future of AA, but I'm also just as scared as I am excited. Because what I saw happen with some pastors, and I'm honestly, I'm honestly not trying to put myself above them, but all of a sudden, Rick's sermons became their sermons. And though I never said out loud, hey, Rick Warren created this, I always made sure that at the bottom of the outline, there was recognition given to, the formation of the outline or whatever. And then in a lot of my my public talking, I would give credit to him. But what I would often say, for example, I'd say, Rick Warren, who initially provided this content, although I don't think I used the word content in those days, but this message, he said it this way, and I couldn't say it any better. And I just want to, but then I would add, now he would use an illustration, I would use a different illustration, right? Because he'd use his son, I'd use my son.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We kill our kids, when we're up there. So I don't know if that, I wanted to come back to that. We're saying, regurgitating something that is really good, if it's fact checked and convicts you, I think that's awesome. I just think that if you take a shortcut, and I go back to what Wayne Cadero, taught me about burnout, is that when you skip the process of the content going through your heart before you provide it to others, you're skipping your heart. And when you skip your heart, you're hurting yourself, at least. Maybe the Holy Spirit isn't bound to that in the use and benefit of others. But I know for sure from personal experience that if I use my knowledge alone to present messages, it falls short.
Yeah, you triggered a thought here that maybe AI is an amplifier. And I've said that already, but I'm saying it in a different way. Maybe AI is potentially an amplifier of somebody's heart. And that if there's a reason you would take a shortcut, is AI going to be the reason that you would take a shortcut? Or is it just going to reveal the fact that you're a shortcut taker?
Now, okay, hold on. You just gave me an example of where I would use AI. You, Winston Harris, are much better at turning phrases, as we say, or coining phrases than I am off the top of your head. What I can see, because I have used ChatGPT, I'd say, here's my thinking. Can you reword this in a memorable, poetic way? And sometimes it can't, but other times it does. And I go, I like that. And that does represent my heart, does represent what I came up with. But sometimes it needs to come out rusty, crusty, like me, and that's how I deliver it. And I'd rather choose that than the cleaned up version.
Yeah. Polished versus authentic.
Yeah. Sometimes not. We're just going to go with my rusty gate.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah. And but as you were talking about that tension of, the incarnate communication, what's happening in you coming out versus, essentially taking a shortcut, spending less time wrestling for the efficiency of
exposing the shortcut taker, man.
I think there's something there to say that no matter what the industry is, whether we're talking about a pastor, a Christian space, a content creator, a politician, a doctor, however we use AI, you've kind of alluded to it throughout this whole conversation. The temptation to mismanage it, misuse it, is always there. And I think that speaks less about the tool and more about the person.
There is something I'm going to say right now, and I think I'm supposed to say it, but I don't like it. I think there's a difference between a biblical communicator and a church builder. And sometimes a church builder is tempted to take shortcuts because most of their time is doing other things that are important that build the church, but they're not as gifted or called or convicted to bring this thing that I'm talking about, where I've really wrestled all week with, to you. And I don't even know that I mean that as a criticism as much as it becomes that thing that gets them. My worry for them, of course, is burnout. That would be my worry for them, my concern for them, believing that their heart's in the right place. But the center, at least in my evangelical traditional, mindset, is how if what we say about the Bible is true, then why would we why would we delegate it to anything?
Yeah,
that's where I struggle.
Well, for the church builder and the church administrator, I think AI definitely creates more efficiencies. It arguably frees up shepherds and pastoral teams and staffs to do more human work that AI couldn't do. The spreadsheets and the numbers.
I'm a perfect example of that. I could easily fall into church building because I have a gift of administration and I have a background in business. And so spreadsheets and metrics and strategies and org charts. And I think I've left that behind now, but I have seen myself float into those things. And with the assistance of AI, if I would have had that, the problem with some technologies is that it takes longer to learn how to use it than it does save you the time but that's probably another, podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I think as we kind of land the plane and wrap up, actually, before we do that, I do want to get back to your statement about, and this is a little off topic, but just curious since we're here, the seeker sensitive movement being, did you say dead? Is that what you said?
Well, if it's not dead, we should shoot it.
I am curious. Elaborate.
When I talk about seeker sensitivity, I'm not talking about hospitality. I think hospitality is one of the requirements of a overseer, somebody who cares about God's people and cares about people seeking out God, who finds their way in a conversation, a coffee shop, or in a worship service, or wherever they find themselves. I think that going back to Henry Blackaby's theology, God is always working. I think what God's people do is they got to work hard at saying, what is God doing? And then join him in that versus create our own things. I don't pretend to know how or why, because in those days I was more of a pragmatist than where I've grown today, where I'm much more philosophical, although pragmatism hasn't left me. So I like to get stuff done. There's no doubt about that. But I think today, one of the things I've noticed about politics, I don't think you can compartmentalize these things. People, they know which side they stand on, which side, whether they're red or blue. Some wish there was a middle group, but it doesn't win elections, and what it does is creates indifference, in a lot of places like that. And I think I see that is also penetrated the church, to where the churches are slowly but surely beginning to align red or align blue. And you can see that. And if you don't think that's happening, then just make a blue statement, a clearly blue statement, Democratic statement, a what we would now today call left side, or make a strong right statement, and you will see that your church is moving to the red or to the blue. Now, of course, some people are cussing me out right now, and because they're going, well, if it's a real Church of Jesus, it's going to be blue, or it's going to be. So there's my point right there. But we won't talk about it.
What do you think that is?
Well, I think it's because, and this is harsh. I think that we're not well-rounded. We're not well-rounded in our politics. We don't know why the Democrats believe what the Democrats believe, and we don't know why the Republicans believe what they believe. We don't know why evangelicals believe in such black and white ideas, particularly in eternity and morality. And I don't think we understand the stance that a more liberal view We don't know how to navigate a world that's halfway between hell and heaven. You know, we live in a world that is in the middle, and so the main reason why I believe that is we're illiterate. We're illiterate in so many things. I can't. We don't have a piece of paper in the studio long enough for me to list all the things that I'm illiterate about. So I know that. So, you know, geology, I took a class. I'm illiterate. You know, math, I am now illiterate. I probably always was, because I think I got to trigonometry and barely passed. And, you know, 40 years later, or however many years that is, I'm illiterate. You know, I'm illiterate in so many things, and it's dangerous to be illiterate. So if you're theologically illiterate, which I do believe the vast majority of America is, and I would say even as a pastor who has a master's in divinity and done some advanced studies, I would still say I'm more illiterate than I am literate. So if that's true for me, then how does that represent politics? I used to know how our government runs. I still have got books, but I tell you, it's been so long that I don't understand straw polls. I don't understand some of these things that I got catching up to do. So we don't know how to talk because we don't know anything about what we're talking about. And then I think that to the whole point that you're bringing up in this episode, technology has worsened it because we live in a world of sound bites. So it's, again, we've said this before in this podcast. For me, we're throwing soundbite grenades, and, you know, getting PhDs now are so narrow. You know, to have a PhD, it's a narrow thing. And so we can be filled with PhDs, but we need a PhD over every topic to speak on everything. And the world is just getting faster, and you can just feel the threat. The threat is, you know, just there. So the pastoral work is slow and steady, and our world doesn't like slow and steady.
Yeah.
You know, invite people into a small group that's going to study the book of James. No one's going to come. And it's, you know, it's so I, unfortunately, you know, I'm just sounding like a parrot, I suppose, of the woes, you know, of our culture. Down deep inside, anyone who knows me knows I'm super optimistic. I'm super positive. I'm super hardworking. I believe there's a solution, but to be honest, I'm scratching my head, you know, right now. So the seeker movement is dead, or it should be dead, because all it really does is get us by for another week. And I think there's more. I think we can give more, you know, to that.
What would come after the seeker movement?
I don't know. I don't think any model that I've seen in the past. So I'm not going to, you know, right now the arguments are a guy that gets up and he's super talented, speaking out of emotion and hugging the crowd. You have that model. You have the exegetical verse by verse model. You've got the topical model, which AKA seeker, you know, movement. I don't know.
Well, I heard this recently, and it piqued my interest, and I'll try to bring this back to, you know, once again, the leveraging of AI as a tool versus a shortcut. But there's the charismatic space in faith. There is the kind of the intellectual, theological, reformed space. And then there's, let's just leave those two spaces out there. Because you can kind of, you know, split those two pretty straightforward. The spirit-filled, the very sometimes weird space,
yeah,
and then the more traditional space. And I heard this, that when those two rivers merge, or when these two spaces merge, is when something that has never happened before might happen.
It would have to be a rush of God's humility. It would, to over spiritualize it, I don't know what else to call it. It would have to be a move of the Holy Spirit, because it can't be done by humans. There's just too much pride involved, and threat, and the need to, you know, on the intellectual side, using your example, we need to know the answers. But the same is true in the charismatic side. We just say it in a different way.
Yeah.
So, everyone's looking for that path, that guide. And it's interesting how this podcast is kind of landing. Tools do shape theology. They always have. Methodology has always led theology, not the other way around. People think that's true, but it's not true. If they knew enough spiritual history, I shouldn't say history, human history, and integrated it with God, how God has revealed himself, through things. It has always been methodology has led, theology. Now we might try to fix things by looking back and, putting those things together. But, our fundamental need is the Lord's, presence among us. Sometimes I think the Lord's too much of a gentleman, and other times I'm really glad he is, because I don't know how I would stand. I said in an earlier podcast today that as I was reading through the Gospel of Luke, and literally writing down everything Jesus said in my journal, just his words, just a weird, funny thing I'm doing right now. When I got to, I think it's Luke 6, which is, it might be 5, where he tells his version of Matthew's, of the Sermon on the Mount. And, one of the things that stuck out to me is Jesus' teachings. Nobody has taught like Jesus has taught. And I can't do it. The things that Jesus introduces, teaches, commands even, to love your enemies, to serve them, to go out of your way to help them. There's just too much protest, in me that will come from the intellectual side about reaping and sowing. And, so there's all kinds of biblical arguments that go on, but apparently, God lives at a whole nother level that we're not, not there yet.
Yeah. So
that doesn't, I don't know that we've left this very hopeful.
I mean, I think what I'm going to walk away with today, from our conversation is the fact that AI, amongst any other tool, is a revealer of self. And, obviously, AI has all this potential and positive potential. In the same token, humans are humans.
Yeah.
And humans have desires to take shortcuts and to do things more efficiently for, the benefit of self or whatever. And so all of that, can muddy up what a tool like AI could be. I personally think there's a need for Christians, for morally strong people of character to take this tool and use it appropriately to be effective for, the communication of truth, for the formation of people's souls, for the benefit of our society, to the point of, how do we look forward and how do we anticipate, change and positive change? It's going to take the right type of people who are going to be following the one who is making some really strong claims, Jesus. These types of people have to be the forerunners of how do we use this tool in a way that is not going to be to the detriment of us ultimately.
I think you did a great job landing the plane. I've got all kinds of more to say about it, but we could talk about that later.
All right. Well, until next time, we'll see you on the Today Count Show. Thanks for spending part of your day with us on the Today Count Show. If today's conversation encouraged you, challenged you, or helped you grow, share it with someone in your circle, because we're better when we grow together. And be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected with us on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And remember, real change doesn't happen someday. It happens today. Until next time, keep showing up, keep building, and keep making today count.